But what I want to start with are basic endgames. And I want to teach you a couple of endgames that you basically have to know. And through the lens of that, I'm going to introduce you to some basic endgame principles.
Okay, I mean that sounds fine.
Now, basically when we were looking at mates, right, elementary mates like rook against king and queen against king, those are endgames as well. Like I was teaching you types of endgames, it's just that those fell under the category of basic mates. And now I'm going to teach you actual endgames. And today we'll only do one type of endgame. I don't want to overwhelm you. And let me invite you to another analysis board. Now, as you can see, there's only kings and a pawn left. So a lot of people, when they look at a position like this, they assume draw, because they assume that you cannot win this game with one pawn that's like on d2, right? And pawns are going this way. So, believe it or not, who's the side that is to move is the side that's able to sort of perform to their desired result. If it is white to move in this position, white wins with best play. If it is black to move in this position, he draws with best play. And I want to show you why, and through that I want to introduce you to one very, very important endgame concept. That concept is called opposition. Now, obviously that means absolutely diddly squat to you right now, but...
Whoa, don't be saying that. I know what that means. We've gone over opposition when we did the knight... Yeah, the rook-king checkmate.
Oh shit, we did. Yeah, that also involves a form of opposition. Holy shit, man, I underestimated your abilities yet again. I apologize. Okay, so, Mr. Smarty Pants, why don't you go ahead and start and win this position then? If you know everything about, why don't you also teach me how to beat, Hikaru and all of my opponents as well?
Well, think about it. I mean, you'll have to pay for my tutoring services, of course.
Okay. With pleasure. So, so let's do the first step first. If it's white to move here, how do you actually claim the opposition? Like, can you get control of the opposition here?
Yeah, it's pushing up 2, right?
So, what I mean with opposition is king opposition. It's actually a king move.
Oh, well, I mean, the only way to get opposition here, though, is by going to d3.
Yes, exactly. King to d3. That is actually the only move that wins you the game.
Really?
Yes. And a lot of people, when they look at this position, they don't know the technique. They assume that you have to push the pawn up, because that's ultimately what you have to do in order to win the game. You have to make a queen. So they assume, well, why don't I start? Why am I procrastinating with pushing the pawn up? But let me first show you what happens when you first push the pawn up. And the rule of thumb here is whenever the pawn is in front of the king, that is bad for you. If the pawn is in front of the king, that means the position is no longer winning. And there's one exception to that, which is, if the pawn is on the 7th rank, but we'll get to that. So let me show you how this unfolds. Okay, black goes king d6, you go king e4, black goes king e6. You keep pushing the pawn, right?
Mm-hmm.
You keep pushing the pawn, you keep chasing the king away, everything's going smoothly, perfect, I'm about to make a new queen, and then we run into a very interesting situation. We run into this position. And here black has to be very accurate in order to draw the game. So black has 2 moves. He has king e8 and he has king d8. One of those moves loses and one of those moves draws. I will give you sort of the parameters that you're trying to fulfill, and I want you to find black's best move. What black has to do is be the one to step into the opposition. Black cannot let white be the one to step into the opposition. So with that in mind, which move do you think black should play?
Well, then the only move that works there is d8, right? Because if you go e8, he pushes the pawn, it puts him in check, and then you go to d8, which then lets the white king get into the opposition, right?
There was a lot wrong about what you just said and very little right. So if you push the pawn up to d7, number one, you can just take the goddamn... Not only have you given up your only pawn...
Jesus.
It's like those scenes where someone's killed and then that person comes back and like steps on him one more time. But you've also given black... Well, I guess black does have the opposition here as well. So not only have you given up your only hope to win, you have also granted the opposition to black.
Yeah.
The other problem...
not the lesson you were teaching me?
Well, I mean, maybe you're testing me, actually, in some, like, twisted form of the word. The other problem is, if you go king d6, you can shout to the whole world that you have opposition, but I'm going to shout to the whole world that I'm stalemated. So opposition is only good if your opponent actually has legal moves that he can play. Okay, I can make my apartment into a country and claim that I'm the president of this country, but nobody's gonna give a shit. Just like nobody gives a shit about opposition here. It's stalemate. Does it make sense that it's stalemate?
Yeah.
So the problem with the move d7 is that, well, he can take the pawn or he can go to d8. So I want you to directly grab the opposition here with white in this position.
Yeah, so it's just cutting off the pawn then at d7. Right?
I'm looking to see if you have the same. Yeah, so white to move here. What move steps into the opposition with a king? Sorry, white's move.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were okay. I thought you were still testing me on the best move for black, so it's just coming here.
No, you've already failed that test. So
yeah, I was wondering why we're going back.
Has come and gone, just like the Midnight Express. Yeah, so you made the right move. I see on your stream. It didn't convey, but and now you win the game because black has to step out of the opposition, and now you can make your favorite move, which is what?
Yeah, now we're just pushing the pawn, right?
Pushing the pawn up. Now you're basically smoking the king out of its perch on d8. He has to go to c7, and now how do you pave the way for the pawn to go even further forward?
Oh, I obviously just can't push him. Do I bring the king up first
Bingo.
to e7?
And that speaks to one of the most important concepts in all endgames, which is that the king now acquires superpowers, right? The whole middle game, the king is trying not to get mated. But when most pieces are gone from the board, yes, the king is a lame piece, but you still have to use it because that is the only piece you have at your disposal in those types of positions. So king activity is a crucial aspect of the endgame. You have to keep your king active in most of these positions. So does that kind of intuitively make sense? And then, the king moves up and you make a queen and the game is over.
Right,
so,
there's nothing you can do.
So with that in mind, where does black's king then have to go in this position in order to avoid that scenario?
So we need to claim that first, right? So
yeah, so you need to be the one to step into. That's how I think you can think about it to make it easier. Black needs to be the one to step into the opposition with white's king.
So it's still it is d8, right? Like you have to drop
D8.
the king to okay.
It is d8 exactly. So king e6 is met with what move?
Then we go to e8.
Exactly. And white, as per your expert opinion, can claim opposition here with king d6, but this is what?
This is now stalemate.
Right, so this is the ideal situation for black, that white has to force black either into stalemate or give up his last pawn. Like, white can move the king away, but then he gives up the pawn. So the reason why you don't want to keep your pawn in front of the king is because eventually, by force, you get funneled into this situation. You can shift this pawn to the right, you can shift this pawn to the left. It doesn't matter where you shift this pawn. The same exact rules prevail. Black has to be the one to step into opposition, and if he does, the game is then drawn.
So to go all the way back to the beginning, why do you need to get into opposition first to begin? It seems like it only really matters when you get it to the 7th rank.
So let's talk about it, and it's going to be the same concept repeated on every rank. You step into the opposition, and you perform a technique called out-shouldering. It's almost like the king has a shoulder, and you're shouldering black's king away from its control over certain key squares. So black has many moves, which we'll use the move king e5 for illustrative purposes. Now, you can keep dancing around with the opposition, but you're not getting anywhere. So you have to kind of make some ground with your king. So you go king c4. And your goal is to pave the path for the pawn. It's like unrolling the red carpet with the king. It's like the president stepping down from the plane and the military officer standing there. That's the role that the king plays with the pawn. The king wants to be to the side of the pawn, ideally, controlling the key squares that the pawn advances to.
That makes sense.
So how does that actually work? Let's say black goes king e4. Okay, I guess that's opposition, but it's side opposition. It's not important. Is it now time to move the pawn? And if so, how many squares? Outflanking, I guess. The outshouldering is, I guess, the Russian term for it. Outflanking.
Yeah, so is there a reason why you wouldn't push up 2 squares? Because I'm not seeing it.
You do push it up 2 squares. I go king f5. And now this is, again, an application of the key principle. You could push the pawn up. This technically does win. But for instructional purposes, you want to keep controlling the squares with the king. So where do you think white can put his king?
Well, you get opposition there at d5, but it's kind of a worthless opposition.
Yeah.
So do you just bring it up to d5?
Exactly. And after king e6, You want to avoid the nightmare scenario. If you bring your pawn up 1 square, the pawn is on the same rank as the king. Black's king gets back to d7. So don't let the king get back to d7.
Okay, so then we need to cut that off by bringing the king up to c6.
Bingo. The king goes to e7.
Now
we have a problem. We bring the pawn up. Very nice. Black has 2 possible moves that we're going to analyze. King d8 and king e8. If he goes king d8, we've reached one of the crucial positions we talked about. Now white has to sidestep a mistake and make an only move. Does he get opposition or does he push the pawn up?
Opposition right here wouldn't matter, right? Because our pawn's not on the right rank for that to be a player, right?
Not sure. Opposition would matter. If you go d6, is this a familiar situation? Black is the one who's got an opposition. You get stalemate again. So you do have to get opposition. And the reason you get opposition is because Black can't pass. Black would like to pass a move here, but he can't. He has to move his king to one of the sides, and then you move the white king to the other side. So king e8 is met with what move? You go the opposite direction in order to pave the way for the pawn now.
Yeah, so now we just go back to c6, right?
But not c6, because c6 will control the queening square. c7.
Yeah, C7.
And now we are safe to do what? And we can basically close our eyes and do this.
Yeah, now we're just bringing the pawn up.
All the way to d8. So this is, remember, this is the ideal situation. You get the king on c7, and you have the pawn on d5, and you can just push it up all the way. Now,
okay.
Same exact thing happens on the other side if king c8 is played. What does white do here?
Now we're bringing it to e7.
Bingo. And then d6, d7, d8. So this is all, it all seems a little detached from reality, but this is all going to make sense, and it's all going to come together in your mind. Trust me. I've taught this 1 or 2 times before. And you're doing a good job. You're doing a good job. This is hard to teach. Actually, if you want to know, I'll give you a little insight into the coach's laboratory. These endgames, for me, are among the hardest to teach well. Because there's so many rules, and they don't all make intuitive sense. So I have to make them all make sense and then help you put them all together. So if I'm doing a bad job, I want to hear about it. I'm actually not as experienced with this. You see, I'm learning too.
No, I mean, that all made sense to me.
Okay, so I want you to start from... And see, another reason this is hard to teach. Black has many moves in any particular positions. The rules about how you play stay the same, but Black can sidestep in various different ways. For example, let's say Black plays king to d6. White to move. Try to make a couple of accurate moves now in this position. Okay, I'm going to go king c6. This is where you need to make a really 5-head move. Because every fiber in your body is probably urging you to push the pawn 2 squares.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was just
I'm not even looking at your stream, but I'm sure you're hovering over that square right now.
Yeah, I was.
But remember, it's not how it looks, because now the pawn and the king are on the same file. That is fucking bad. Why is it bad? Because we've talked about this scenario before. Now you start pushing the pawn is in front of the king, the worst case scenario, which means Black always gets the opposition here. White has no way to force the opposition, then we get the nightmare scenario.
Okay, so I didn't realize that was in perpetuity. So if you do get them on the same file there before you get to the 7th rank, it's always going to be Black's opposition.
Exactly how it works. So here, counterintuitively, you push the pawn not 2 squares, but 1 square. And the idea is that so you can then grab the opposition with what move?
Yeah, now we're just going here to d4.
And then you start what's called the outflanking procedure. Wherever Black's king moves, you move to the other side. I think in soccer there exists that very same concept. Like pretty sure I've seen like Lionel Messi do that, where he like fakes his opponent out. You go one way and I go the other way. Yep.
Okay.
You go one. You can actually do that again. That would be a mistake. I get opposition. You want to do that as many times as you can to pave as many squares as possible for the pawn.
I didn't mean to move that, by the way.
No problem. I see you play king d5. Yeah, so king c7.
Oh.
Yeah, it sometimes auto-syncs weirdly. Okay, king c5. I'm going to go king d7. We're going to keep dancing. You made the mistake again.
I didn't mean...
You let me into opposition. You let me into opposition. So in this position... in this position... You need to
it's going opposite.
You need to keep faking him out. You need to keep going opposite.
Okay.
Yep, exactly. King e6.
All right, that makes sense then. Okay.
And the reality is only when you have, and this is, I want you to hammer this rule in your head, only when the king has reached the 6th rank can you actually start pushing the pawn. So what that means is king e6, I go king d8. Now you don't need to do that thing one more time. You can actually start pushing the pawn.
And that's because you have no tiles to drop back on, right?
Exactly. That's just the way the geometry of the board works. And you can actually push the pawn all the way to d7. You don't have to. Here you can do that outflanking procedure again. I want you to actually do that. Perform that outflanking procedure.
Right.
Yep, and if the king goes to e8... Okay, you're learning this pretty fast. But because the king has reached the 6th rank, there's another cool thing you can do. Which is... Actually, no. Can you push the pawn to d6? Is that a possible move? Sorry, I actually miscalculated this at first.
Yeah, because you can't grab opposition, right?
Black?
I mean, you can, but it's not going to be...
Calculate it. Calculate this out until the
okay.
end. So king e8, what does white do?
Wait, what move is being played right now?
Let's say black goes king to e8. So
okay.
Who wins? Does white win or is this a draw?
Push the pawn, check.
Push the pawn, check, king d8.
Yeah, and then d8. Yeah, that's just going to be a draw then. That's a stalemate, right?
Exactly.
Because then I can't leave.
That's exactly right. So instead of this, you have to go king d8. You have to pave the way. But what you can do is you orchestrate this procedure until the king is on the 6th rank. Then you can push the pawn up to the 5th rank. And then you can do the same thing again. Okay?
Okay.
Now, there's one more interesting thing, which is that if you push the pawn up to the 5th rank... sorry, I'm just making a bunch of random moves for illustrative purposes.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
I'm just trying to get the right situation here. So here, here, here. So we need the king on e8. We need this position with white to move. Okay, so sorry. Yeah, so in this position, sorry, that took me a long time to actually do. This is one of the exceptions to the rule. If black grabs opposition while the pawn is on the 5th rank, white actually can push the pawn up 2 squares and win the game. Because what happens is, well, try it.
Yeah, you only have one move, right? You can only do one move back and forth, right?
And now I go here. We had this before. Now you can control the promoting square with your king. Exactly, in d8 queen.
Yeah.
So there's really, I guess we can break this down into three separate processes. One is outflanking, where you claim opposition and then you go the opposite way to pave more squares for that pawn to go. You do that until the king reaches the 6th rank. Then you push the pawn up to the 5th rank, and depending where black's king is, you either push it all the way to the 7th rank, or you do that procedure one more time to control the final promoting squares. Now, you might ask, well, why don't we just fucking get this over with until the very... Why don't we just get it over with here? Why don't we just, like, do this, and then this, right? You know what? You see what I'm saying? And then this.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem is, well, you could do that. The problem is the pawn is now a little bit too far away. So black goes king e7, you go d4, and black goes king e6, and all of a sudden he catches the pawn. So that's why you want to stop when you're here and then start pushing the pawn up to the 5th rank so that the king can't catch the pawn. So that's why you do those things in that order.
Okay, that makes sense.
So it's very tricky, you know, but let's try to do it from the start, and I guarantee you the things are going to just, all of them are going to come together. You do this once, and you'll never forget it again. I want you to start from this position and try to win the game with white.
Okay. Are you seeing the moves or not? Because I feel like I just got left on red.
Yeah, you did get left on red, but I'm reading your actual stream as well, so it should eventually synchronize. Okay. For now, I'm just manually executing the moves that I'm seeing on the stream. Okay, there we go. Ah!
I just, yeah. Oh, now you have opposition forever.
Continue the procedure.
Yeah.
But you've been doing a great job so far. Sorry, that scream was unwarranted.
It also desynced the game, you fucking asshole.
Yeah, fuck. What did I do? It unsettled that, you know. I don't even know what to compare it to. There's like gerbils running that are keeping this running, and I scared them off.
Yeah, now I'm at the 6th
Yeah.
rank. Now I push it up.
I don't,
Yeah, I was just
I don't know
wondering.
if I'm ever going to give you another lesson again. You know, I don't appreciate being spoken to like that.
Well, that's what you signed up for. 6th rank opposition is not a problem.
Exactly. I like that you actually grasped that. But this is where you need to be very careful.
Yeah,
Remember,
so then
that's the
this is
third
when,
step. You want to perform that procedure again. Surgery.
yeah.
And now the surgery is over. Yep, black has been successfully lobotomized, and you promote the queen. Very nice. Very, very nice. Now, the one comment I wanted to make, you actually did this in the very five-head manner. Here you played d3. You don't need to do that. You can go king to c5, and you can continue the procedure. And if king e5, here you make what move? Here there's side opposition, so you can already start pushing the pawn up 2 squares. Right?
Okay.
Check,
Okay.
and then what move in this position?
Do I just bring the pawn up again? Because on the same file wouldn't matter in this position,
It
would
does. It's not on the 6th rank yet. Then king goes back to d7. We're on the 5th rank. So here you have to continue that procedure until you're on the 6th rank.
Right. Okay. So then I'm just bringing the king up to c6.
Yes, exactly. King c6, king e7. Now complete the process.
Okay, now this is when we just push it up because we're on the 6th rank.
Yep.
Or do I just want to keep doing the procedure now, or
If you
does it
keep
not
doing
really
the
matter?
procedure, we run into a situation I painted to you earlier. Like the king tries to catch the pawn. So you have to push the pawn up 1 more square and then complete the procedure.
Got it, okay.
Yep, exactly. Like king e8. Beautiful. So you got it done. You got it done. Now do you see why in the starting position, if it were black to move here, what move would black play? Now, I'm going to get this position with black to play using something called triangulation. Okay, black to move. Solved. Now try to draw this with black.
Yeah, now I'm just grabbing opposition, right?
Exactly. And basically, you're keeping the king as close as possible to the pawn. You're never going backward when that's unwarranted. You're staying as close as possible. Exactly. Nice.
Yeah, because I'm looking for a stalemate, right?
Exactly. And this is the only position where you have to be careful. You have to... Yep, nice. And fast, too.
Yeah, no, I think I understand this positioning now, because now this is stalemate.
Very, very nice. You got it down for both colors. Now, I'm going to blow your mind a little bit. This is actually very easy to understand. There's only one scenario where all of this is void. Null and void. And that is if you have a corner pawn. And you'll actually see the reason for this very, very quickly. If I translate this position like 3 squares to the left and I get a corner pawn, okay? I'm actually going to do that right now using several magical devices that I have at my disposal.
Okay. Mod tools or whatever.
You will see, and the chat will be so just enthralled by what the transformation that's about to happen on your screen that they'll all abandon you. I will have 5,000 subs gifted right about now.
I see.
Just
one of those kind of moves.
Countdown from 5.
Kind of move that just steals the soul from your wallet, eh?
Exactly. The credit cards are out in force, and here we go.
Whoa, look at this guy.
It's what a transformation, right? This should be in the Louvre Museum. Okay, so it doesn't matter whose move it is. This is a draw. It doesn't matter how many frickin' pawns there are on the A file. It's a draw. And the reason why is because, unfortunately, there's no letter before A. So you have opposition. Again, you can cry to your, you can shout to the world that you have opposition, but you can't move the king to that blue part, or in your case, the black part. You see what I'm saying? You cannot perform the outflanking procedure because there's no airspace. There's no real estate to do it in.
It's interesting. So in this position, is it best just to force the stalemate or offer a draw?
Offer a draw or force the stalemate. Yeah, most people they might play along and they might blah 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 blah. I mean, they might do all of this, but then eventually they force stalemate. And the funny thing is, and it blows a lot of people's minds, but the reality is there's nothing impressive about this concept at all. I can set up this position. 1 second, I'm pasting it in. And it's just as much of a draw as any other position. This one. This is also a draw. Now, in the old days, if you ran this position on an engine or on a computer, it would say that white is completely winning because white is up 5 pawns. Holy shit. But then you look at it, and the reality is this doesn't give you any added power to what you can do. You can defend the pawn, but you won't be able to smoke Black's king out of the corner square. Again, because there's no real estate, there's only stalemate. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
all of what I just taught you is only valid from the B to the G file. On the A and H files, it's almost like one of those things like Newton's theory is invalid at like high speeds or whatever. That's where Einstein comes in. On the A and H files, the rules of the endgame work completely differently. So anything that I tell you about the endgame as we go forward, usually if we translate whatever I say to the corner files, things work completely differently by a completely different set of rules. So does that sort of make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense to me. And I'm just trying to look at ways that maybe it's not a draw, but there's really no way of planting your king on B7 or anything, is there?
Even if Black is like a monkey, this is a draw. Like, the only circumstance under which Black does not actually draw is if he deliberately plays king to C8.
Panics.
Thanks, Horse, for the sub and the kind message. Yeah, exactly. So, king A8. And you can start giving away your pawns. Now we get a very, very funny scenario where Black just mows down each pawn in succession. And White's king has to stand and watch. This is like the best example of like big dick, small dick I've ever seen. Like, White just has to like go around and watch as Black just gobbles everything up. This is like stealing your lunch money kind of king. Except in chess, you want to do that.
That's adorable, man. All right. So pawn on the rim is grim as well when it comes to endgame.
Pawn on the rim is grim, just like knights, exactly. So that is your introduction to what's called theoretical endgames. These are like the openings of the endgame. You know, openings are studied by people. These endgames have been studied by people, and so the techniques of winning them and drawing them are already known to the world. And there have been hundreds of books written on these types of endgames, which you kind of have to study and memorize. You have to memorize a ton of these endgames because they actually arise in your games. For you, you don't get a lot of endgames, so this might be a little bit less central. But when you improve at chess, when you improve at endgames, you also learn a lot of themes that you can then apply in middle games and openings as well.
That makes sense. How many at the grandmaster level? How many of them come down to an endgame?
I'm sure that would actually be a very interesting statistical question. I would say probably at least like 1 in 5.
Okay,
and
so it is still pretty sizable.
I'm looking at my games right now, and I can tell you the longest game I ever played on record, and I've probably played longer games that are not in my database, 145 moves.
Holy shit.
This was in Vegas 2014. I was playing another grandmaster from China. This was an endgame. And let me paste this game, and I can show you what endgame this reached. 145 moves. Yeah, that was definitely the longest game in chess history, in recorded chess history, I think was 249 moves.
Well, computers play those constantly, though, right? Like,
yes.
Most computer games are like 200, 300 moves, right?
Exactly, because the advantages are so marginal that it takes so long to like flesh everything out. Not 200, 300, but computer games regularly go out to 100-plus games because they also never agree to draws. You know what I'm saying? They always play it out until the end. So, by definition, you're going to have longer games. I don't know if you see me pasting it.
No. Well, I see the 5 pawns again.
Oh, God. Yeah, it's one of those things. I'm going to have to close that board. Close that board. Thank you, Bulldozer Bandit, for the sub. Me. Yeah, I'm going to try to... Yeah, with PGNs, for some reason, it doesn't... Okay, let me try to reinvite you. 1 sec. Plus turbo. If it doesn't work, then yeah, well, I'll just paste the position. Okay.
I got it.
Let's see. I'm looking at your stream to see what you see. Yep. Fuck, you saw it and then it disappeared. Like it was there for a flashing moment, and then now you see the original game.
This isn't the one?
Yeah, like on your stream it briefly showed up and then it disappeared.
Yeah, you can invite me again, I guess.
Try one more time. If it doesn't work, I'll just show you the final position. Sorry for the...
It's all good, man.
Let me close out of it myself. Man, the chess.com devs have been on this for years. It doesn't quite seem to be a fixable problem. Okay.
I think I've accidentally spoiled the season finale. Is the endgame with black, 1 rook, 1 bishop?
Yes, exactly.
White, 1 rook, 1 pawn?
That's exactly it. So set position PGN. And now let me invite you one more time. If not, I'll just paste in the final position to show you what the end game was. Okay, let's see.
All right. Well.
Now you see it.
This is it. Okay.
Wait. The last game that you had, could you open that other one up? Like you have 2 games open right now. Could you open the other one up?
Yeah. This
like
one.
It's on the right hand toolbar. Yes, that's it. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. So that was fucking hell. Okay. So I guess there's some sort of weird delay. But basically, this was like the type of endgame that we had reached. And we played this position out for another 60 moves. And basically, I was black. So I had the rook and the bishop, and he had the rook and the pawn. I won his pawn eventually. And that is a theoretical draw. So that position, despite black having an extra bishop, with best defense is a draw. Black does not have enough resources to win. And it's considered to be one of the hardest draws to make in chess from a human perspective. And my freaking opponent sat there and defended it for 2+ hours and made that draw. And I made him work for every fucking penny. We finished at about 3 a.m. And guess what happened at 9 a.m. the next day? The next goddamn game.
Yeah, baby.
That's the life of a chess player. So this was 149 moves, and I've had a couple of games lasting over 100 moves. 128 moves in Spain. I had a game. Yeah, so 108 moves. I had about maybe 10 or 15 games. So sorry, that was a very long-winded answer to your question, but essentially, lots of games reach the endgame. Endgames are a crucial phase of the game. Tons of books have been written on endgames. I've dabbled in that as well, but again, its primary use is as toilet paper. But endgame, it's like the going to the dentist. Like you have to do it, and there's no way around it. If you're a strong player, tons of your games reach the endgame because the differences in strength between you and your opponent just aren't that vast. Sorry, I feel like I talked for like 45 minutes just now.
No, you're all good. Did you change the position or?
No, I just okay. It's not working because like I'm looking at your stream and you see the correct position, but I'm not able to make any moves. But we just made like 50 random moves here. I tortured him forever.
I can see some of them. Wait, did you guys chase kings around?
Oh yeah, you can see them. Wait, no. It's like super glitchy. It's like superimposing one game on top of another game. Like this is so weird. No. We didn't have this. We played with rook and bishop against king. You're clicking on the top computer line. So it's just telling you like king moves. This is fascinating. Keep doing this. I'm watching your stream and I want to see how this ends up. I don't know.
Well, it doesn't. They just go endlessly forever.
No, I was sarcastic, asshole.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say you've got a weird fetish.
Yeah, for those bear king positions. Oh man, show me more of them.
Yeah, it's 46 moves of just king positions.
That's a folder on my computer. I don't let anybody access. Just like segments of games that had bear kings.
Ooh, yum.
I know, man. Just don't mention this to anybody because I cherish it with all of my heart. So, yeah. Jesus. This is just fascinating. I can't even look at your stream. I might lose it, so I need to switch to my own.
Yeah, I don't know how to find your moves, but it showed me a couple of moves there before it.
Yeah, exactly. But you get the hang of it. It was like just tons of long games. And the longest game in history, over 200 moves. It went into the next day. And like tempers flare up when you play these long games. Like, I remember there was some like the longer the game goes, the more annoyed. Like when your opponent sniffles or something, the more annoyed you get. And then obviously the next day you're just a zombie. So tournaments are just thankless things.
So did you not have like a time limit, or did you manage to play like 100 whatever moves in that time limit?
So the thing is, this tournament was played with an increment. So every move you made, you added an additional 30 seconds in your clock. This is actually the drawback of increment because you can basically play these endless games and your time doesn't run out. We were also playing for a ton of money. The top prize in this tournament was $100,000.
Oh.
This was called the Millionaire Chess Challenge. It was one of the few open tournaments with such a big prize. And there were like hundreds and hundreds of competitors, tons of grandmasters. And the top 4 participants, the top 4 players in the standings at the end of 7 games, they went into the final 4 to basically play for the big prizes. And I showed this on my stream, but I tied for 4th place after 7 games with 4 other grandmasters. So that very same evening, this is like 24 hours after this massive long game was played, we played a tiebreaker mini tournament to see who would get that 4th spot. And I choked on the crucial game. That was one of the only time. This was covered on air. This was live streamed. I've shown my stream, like, the actual game on tape. Like, me actually playing that crucial tiebreaker game. And I actually I lost it, so I didn't quite qualify for the Final Four. That pain was unlike anything you just experienced. It's like crushing, absolutely crushing.
Oh, that sounds miserable. Yeah, 4th place would have been what, like 20 grand?
I would be guaranteed at least 20 grand, yeah, if I qualified into the Final Four. So I lost about 50. That was the most money I've ever lost with one chess game. I lost about, I think my final prize in the end was about 5K. So I lost at least 15K with like 3 moves. So, you know, the people who think chess is just like a not high stakes game, like take that as an example of why chess players are stressed all the time. Yeah.
Well, I mean, chess has like good sponsors and stuff, right? Like, I know it's kind of a meme, but Hikaru is allegedly worth $44 million. So,
well, I'll put it this way: the top of the top make a good living. So the top 10 chess players in the world make a good living, but then it like asymptotically goes down. Like for me, if I were to only play in tournaments and I would not coach, I would not stream, I would basically be on the streets of Charlotte.
where you belong, yeah.
Where I belong, yeah, exactly. Like the vermin that I am.
Yeah.
And the reality is a lot of European players, Eastern European players, are able to make a living because the salaries there are obviously, they can win 1 or 2 tournaments a year, 10, 15K, and that's enough for them to survive. In America, unfortunately, chess at the grassroots level, at the level of 100th in the world, where I am approximately, very, very, you have to make a living as a coach. You have to kind of be a chess businessman or other stuff. So there are sponsors. It's getting better, but I would say it's still nowhere near other sports.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
Yeah. So, well, this is fascinating. I mean, if you have any other questions, I'm happy to answer. I was thinking maybe we could finish off with like one or two games in the pool.
Sure, man. Yeah, I'll hop in the pool.
But I love talking about this, as you can tell. Like I feel like I'm going on for too. I'm probably boring the hell out of your chat, but
no, man. I think most people find it interesting. It's a perspective you don't typically get to hear.
Yeah, it's a very niche, just like Bear King fetishes. It's a very niche field.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you're playing Kaledin 87. Does that guy have any teeth? Jesus. Yeah. People in your chat are too kind to me. I'm just seeing the outpouring of support.
Yeah, so that's a good question from the chat, though. Who did win the 100K?
It was a guy named Wesley So. He is now ranked in the top 10 in the world. And back then he was also ranked in the top 10 in the world. So basically the pre-tournament favorite won.
Gotcha.
Okay, so he going
We've gone over this, but I don't quite remember. Is this best to just chase that away at A3 or just keep developing?
Well, he's indirectly attacking your E4 pawn. He wants to remove its defender by capturing your knight. So you have to lend further reinforcement to the pawn on E4. Right.
Okay, so then it is still just developing where I push this pawn up to D3 here and then look to develop bishop next.
Yep, exactly. Exactly right. Okay, well, he's very proud of himself that he ruined your pawn structure. But that, again, we discussed this. He's also given up a very important bishop.
Yeah.
Okay, so D5.
Okay. Yeah, so now I'm just looking to bring bishop either. Do I want to bring bishop back? Because holding this knight pin doesn't do me much good, which we've gone over. So I just want to bring it back to B3, right?
You're missing the forest for the trees, though. He's also attacking your pawn on E4 twice, and you're only defending it once. So you actually have to release the tension here.
Really? Okay, so I just have to take the pawn then?
Yes.
Huh.
Yeah, otherwise he wins the pawn. He takes the pawn with his pawn, and then he takes that with his knight.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I guess I just didn't even notice that.
Right, now he's attacking your pawn on C3. You can make a really five-head move and sacrifice it for development. That would be the next level of play.
Sacking the pawn to develop?
Yeah, so just basically proceeding as if nothing is happening and just continuing to develop. Because also notice, if he takes the pawn, that puts his knight on an awkward square where you could attack it with your queen. So, okay, so bishop G5, he goes, wow, he's playing instantly.
So in this position here, dropping it back, I could get trapped because he does have that pawn that he could eventually get to F4.
So drop it back such that it also defends the C3 pawn.
Yeah. So then I just want to bring this bad boy back all the way to here.
Nice. Now you have the two bishops. You've weakened his position. He's pushed his pawn out to f6. He's playing very well so far, but you can keep developing.
Yeah. So him now pushing this bishop. What does this do? When he can't really move this knight anywhere where he doesn't get taken, so the knight's not going anywhere.
Just keep developing.
What's that?
Keep developing.
Yeah. So now I just want to castle.
Bingo. Yeah. So this is okay, queen e7.
So I'll tell you what I was looking at. So it looks. I think he's gonna want to castle long here.
Yeah, me too.
I was looking at just bringing rook to b1 preemptively and maybe forcing him to castle short where it's weaker.
Love it. Love it, love it, love it. That's a great move, putting the rook on an open file. He might still castle long and defend that pawn. Okay, he doesn't. Okay, but now his knight on c6 has lost its support, so you have the option of attacking it.
Yeah, so now I can just bring my bishop over here to b5, which now pins it, and he has nothing to defend it. He'll have to move either his bishop or his queen.
Yeah, that introduces more awkwardness in his position. You can maybe attack the other knight with your pawn. I mean, things start to roll downhill for him here already.
Okay, so he's defending. What I was looking at next is bringing my pawn on c3 up to c4, attacking the knight, but more so bringing up the diagonal for my bishop at d2 to attack queen on d4.
That's all exactly right. Bingo. Sorry, I got excited, but that, like, both of the moves, the follow-up moves, and also bishop to b4, noticing that he can't take that bishop with his knight because that knight is pinned. So once his other knight moves, that square is free to go to. Exactly.
Perfect.
And notice how you've put your rook on b1. Now it serves the purpose of supporting that bishop. Otherwise, he would have taken it with his queen. And now focus on that knight on c6. You want that knight to lose its support. So think about what you want to do next.
Right. So I'm imagining he's going to... Yeah. Okay, so now he has that knight only defended by that one knight. So now I just want to take knight with bishop, and then I win a king. All right, I win the knight,
Charlie,
and then
you
I'm
win a king. You win the king. Can you tell me about how to win kings? Because I really want to know that.
Again, you'll have to pay for my tutoring services.
Okay, well, maybe you'll cut me a discount.
I'll think about it.
I'd be honored. So, very nice. This was like a great stretch of play. This is like how I would have done it. Bishop b5, c4, bishop b4, takes c7. You see how harmonious your play has become? And
yeah, I genuinely think like taking breaks in between has been great to like refresh my fucking eyes.
The hunger is there, and like your training is more targeted, and you're just playing great. I mean, you're finding all these ideas, but it's also like not about the quantity. I never trained for more than like an hour a day. So I went to school, you know, I had basketball and shit. So like I always don't buy this thing where people say, oh, you have to train 7-8 hours a day. You just have to train well. Chess is not a game. Okay, what the hell? He doesn't even take your bishop back.
Yeah, so that's probably the best move for him, right? Otherwise, I was going to win a rook out of that too. So now I just need to drop my bishop back to keep that out of harm's way.
Bingo.
You can keep the queen there. Now, does it matter what square I put him on between b4 and a3?
The less contact, the better. So put it on a square where it's safe. You've gotten the kill. Just bring it back. You know, shelter that bishop because there's a, you know.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm just going to bring it back to b4 then.
Okay, I would bring it to a3. Less contact means b4 bishop is pressured by his knight. Now you say the knight can't move. Yes, but why open up that possibility even later? You know what I'm saying?
Okay, that's fair.
All right,
that makes sense.
Bingo. Bishop a3.
Okay, looking to chase away bishop here.
To go ahead and move. Move it to Ras.
So now I'm just bringing back to a4. I'll still hold this, and then I'll just end up dropping him back anyway. So he can't trap it or anything because I have a pawn protecting it.
He made a nice move here, actually. b5, bishop b3, good. So he's pressuring your pieces, but he can't win them, and you're already a piece up. And he also can't castle because of that other bishop on a3. Okay, now he's blundered a pawn.
Yeah, so this move right here, is there any reason why he played that, or is that just a shit move all around?
It's a shit move all around.
Okay. I imagine maybe he wants to take bishop with bishop, might be his thought.
Yeah, but then you have an intermediate move you could make. Okay, he doesn't do that. Now, again, prioritize the immediacy. What is his most annoying piece?
Oh, well, right now that knight on d4. That's a good...
Get it the hell out of there so that we can clear our head and think. Also, he loses another piece, but I don't know if you actually see that at this point. He's just blundered another piece.
By him moving that knight, he's blundered a piece?
Yeah, but go ahead and remove the vermin.
Okay, so what I was thinking of, I was just going to push my c-pawn up. I was going to go c3, which also...
Why are you doing that when you can take the knight?
I guess I was just thinking a little longer term where I could develop my queen going out to the c diagonal, or up to the diagonal through that c2, but maybe that's not worth.
It's not worth it, and once you take the knight, you will see why it's best to take the knight. Whenever you capture a knight like this, you have to understand the consequences. He can only capture the knight with a pawn, right? Because, well, never mind. Apparently he thinks better. But what is he? What has he allowed you to do?
He's just blundered his bishop with that.
Yep, exactly. And had he taken the knight with a pawn, he would have opened up the e-file. You could have put a rook on the e-file and won his bishop anyway.
Gotcha. Okay, so that's why it was better to take instead
reminding yourself, one of the key takeaways from today's session, reminding yourself to check how the position changes when there is some sort of capture. You know what I'm saying? Any capture in the center of the board especially, are there any files that are opened? Are there any pieces that are left undefended? Are there any squares that I can now occupy? Stuff like that is something you have to sort of mechanistically check for. Right. Yeah, he's just cursing his fate right now. He also can't castle either side because both bishops, like respectively the dark and the light squared bishop, are stopping him from castling short and long. It's crazy.
Yeah, this is a really nice position to be in. So I'm thinking of follow-ups right now.
Yeah, good.
Since my queen's still on this diagonal where I can deliver a check, I'm just trying to see where I would go from there.
And you can you're actually thinking in the right direction. Don't tunnel vision this.
Yeah.
Old Charlie would just move the bishop, but the new you can actually take this one step further, and you can counterattack him and make a stronger threat.
Yeah, so I think this is still my original idea, right? I haven't finished processing where it goes from here, but delivering that check over there at h5, he blocks with... What'd you say?
Go ahead. You can do that first, and sorry to interrupt. So he blocks with the pawn, and then we'll think. But this is a good move. Now think about where you can drop this queen to make another threat. Look at the whole board. Don't just look near his king side.
Yeah. So I can threaten that rook all the way back there at a8, which is what I looked at. And then also, even if he moves that rook, that still gives me a hanging pawn that I can attack on f6.
Bingo. And that's exactly why giving the check on h5 is such a good idea preliminarily, because you soften up the f6 pawn. That is called provoking a weakness. That is a seriously high-level idea. Now collect.
Yeah, so now he's fucked up. He didn't even see this.
Yeah, but he's already fucked either way. Now you take not only one rook, and he resigned. What a beautiful game. So... to finish off, there's a couple of observations I want to make here. I can invite you to an analysis board, but this was amazing. Unless you want to play one more game in lieu of that.
No, you can toss me it. I want to see what maybe I missed.
Yeah, so this is again, the next level of chess understanding. You're not giving these guys any chances, but there's a few things I wanted to clarify. Okay, inviting you right now. Okay, invited. So
I'm in.
Basically... Yeah, so d3, this move makes sense now, right? You have to lend support to this pawn.
Yeah.
So I wasn't sure what was concerning you here, but bishop b3, he just takes the pawn. And if you take the pawn,
I guess
he just takes the queen and takes the pawn. Now he's forking these other two pawns. This is just bad for white.
Yeah, I guess I'm not really sure. I guess I was just so preoccupied with now my bishop's hanging because I didn't have that support.
So still another form of tunnel vision, one could say. You see the bishop being hanging, you're I have to drop my bishop. But forcing yourself to look at the whole board here, the usual.
Mm-hmm.
So takes. So here, there's two things. Again, I think sometimes in your mind you overestimate the development of the bishops to g5 and b5. This was not one of those cases because luckily you can retreat the bishop back to d2. But normally you want to be careful about a move like this, which can be just blocked by a pawn. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay, so what I would have done here is just castled. And the idea is very simple. If he takes on c3 with a knight, you can fork this knight and another pawn. Which queen move does that job? I mean, you only have 2 of them, so...
Yeah, we just go into e1 right away.
Yeah, now you take on e5, and his king gets opened up, and he's not castled yet. I could even delay taking this pawn and go bishop a3 with the idea of stopping him from castling. So this is what's called compensation. This is when you've sacrificed a pawn, but you have so many advantages in return that it's more than worth. So I would do this, and that's because I've played so many of these games that to me, when I see a threat against my pawn, I like brush it off like a bug on my shoulder. You know, it's like not a problem. So I draw the line at threats against my pieces. When a bishop is being threatened, then I bat an eye. When a pawn is being threatened, oftentimes you can just go along with your business. But This move was amazing. This move was amazing. c4, bishop b4. This is truly an advanced idea. So you've been finding more of these, which is great.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I was pretty proud of that one. I actually calculated that shit kind of deep, so I'm glad it panned out.
And you saw this unorthodox development of the bishop, which is great. So one last thing I want to point out about this game is that why is bishop a3 better than bishop b4? So this is this concept of contact. What you see is, well, he can't take my bishop with his knight because I take the queen. But again, this is a case where I'm thinking in the long run, and maybe you're thinking a little bit in the short term. See, I'm envisioning a scenario where, let's say he pushes this bishop away from b5. Let me give you an example. Let's say the same thing would have happened as in the game. a6, bishop a4, b5, and you bring the bishop back to b3. Now you see the drawback of putting the bishop on b4. What is it?
Yeah, no, he just takes the bishop.
He just takes the bishop. So I'm taking care again of my future self by just tucking it away in a square where it's not making contact with any of my opponent's pieces. It's done its job. It's taken the knight. Now tuck it away. Park it somewhere safe, away from the danger. And other than that, I mean, everything was great. Bishop, queen h5 was a great check. Provoking g6. You could have gone queen f3 immediately, but this is even stronger. The last thing I want to mention is in this position, and this will, I think, be a good way to finish off in the theme of today's concepts, white to play and checkmate in 2 moves. Don't tunnel vision this pawn on f6. You have something even better.
Yeah, so I'm thinking instead of taking this pawn, he's moved his rooks on that winning rook. Is it bringing the queen over here to c6? I deliver a check. That now, yeah, that forces him here, and then this is checkmate, right?
Bingo, nice. And you saw that instantly once again. That's just representative of the improvement. Queen f3, queen c6, and instead he resigned because you actually, to add insult to injury, take another rook.
Yeah.
And then you're up a million pieces. So I'm thinking next time we can work a little bit on your technique and sort of revisit where that is. Winning these types of positions a little bit more smoothly, I think you need some work in that area. But the order of operations, so to speak, has gotten much better. Your crispness with tactics is incomparably better. And I think, yes, if you get a chance to solve some problems on your own, checking those checkmate boxes, I think that's the area where I think you need maybe the most improvement. But by and large, I mean, amazing. I think the combination you produce in the beginning and this game as well, it's going great. I think you're very much prepared for Twitch Rivals. You are participating in Twitch Rivals, right?
Yeah, I am.
So I don't even know my own role. I think it'll be a bit of a free-for-all with the streamers, but I think you're very much well prepared, and maybe we can fit one more session in. But if not, obviously there's PogChamps too, and we'll be in touch. So how do you feel? How was the session for you? Do you have any questions? Anything on your mind?
No, man, it's always fun and informative. I think you're a great teacher, and it's always a good time, man. Are you going to be doing more of your goofy fucking anime dances tonight?
Maybe a little bit, yeah. I'll go for another 30 minutes or so.
All right. Yeah, I'll probably keep going as well.
Yep. Sounds great. So process all of that. A lot of stuff to internalize. Well, you have a fantastic rest of your stream, and very good work today. I'm rough on the exterior, but I'm fucking proud. So rest assured.
Thanks.
All right,
appreciate
Charlie,
it, man.
This is great. Have a great rest of your stream and a great night.
You too, man. I'll talk to you soon.
We'll be in touch. Sounds great. Bye. All right, you guys. Well, that was another very productive session. I mean, the improvement is unbelievable. This is, again, I haven't coached as many beginners, but this improvement is as fast as anything I've seen. I mean, he's playing like 16, 1700 level games.